Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for True show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for True show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and it's always a pleasure to be with you. Tonight, we have something that I know you're going to enjoy because we're all looking for wellness, health, what's the right thing to do nutritionally. And I don't know about you, but probably a lot of you are baby boomers watching the show. And if you're a baby boomer, you want to, be going on forever. So, we're going to look at that. And for those of you of the new generation, everybody wants health and you guys want it now. So this is going to be a show about now. We have a very special guest. We're very lucky to have him. And we're going to introduce him to you. And Buddha, if you put his pictures up on the screen, we're going to introduce Dr. David Minkoff, a graduate of the University of Wisconsin Medical School in '74, elected to the prestigious Alpha Omega Honors Medical Fraternity for very high academic achievement, board certified in pediatrics, fellowship in infectious diseases for the University of California, San Diego, co-director of the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit at Palomar Medical Center, worked at the University of California and Children's Hospitals in San Diego as an attending in infectious disease, and is board eligible in emergency medicine, having worked 12 years at the Community Hospital of Newport Richey, Florida. In 1995, his wife, Sue, a registered nurse, became interested in nutrition, there you see her, and biochemistry. And she started to spark Dr. David Minkoff's passion to find the best ways to cure body ailments and improve performance. Dr. Minkoff transitioned into complementary and alternative medicine to find the answers. Through mentorship with masters in each of these disciplines, he became expert in biological medicine, heavy metal detoxification, anti-aging medicine, hormone replacement therapy, functional medicine, energy medicine, neural and prolotherapy, homeopathy, optimum nutrition, integrative oncology, and acupuncture. Just a few fields. Amazing. David and Sue established, and there you see them again, LifeWorks Wellness Center in 1997, one of the largest complementary and alternative medicine clinics in the United States. The demand became a catalyst for his founding of Body Health in 2000, a nutritional company that manufactures and distributes products with cutting-edge solutions for the many health problems we have today. He's also an author and has written 2 free online newsletters, the Optimum Health Report and the Body Health Fitness newsletter, to help others learn about optimum health and fitness. His Amazon best-selling book, The Search for the Perfect Protein, has been lauded as a landmark work in protein nutrition. He's an avid athlete and has completed in 43 full Ironman triathlons and qualified to race at the Ironman World Championship 8 times. and also devotes time to writing, research, and regularly sees patients from around the world at his LifeWorks Wellness Center. Amazing. So we're in for quite a treat today, and we want a bit of warm welcome. And Buddha, let's put him up on the screen live. Welcome, Dr. David Minkoff, to A Time for Truth show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Good to be with you.
You're welcome. You're a very impressive bio. I think you probably have a 48-hour day. You know, I have to find out how you're doing it.
I just make each hour a half hour, and then I make it.
Okay. I can believe you. I'll have to try that out. So I want to get right to it. Let me ask you a question before we get into what you're doing now. As a young man, what were your dreams?
Oh, have a good family, contribute significantly to helping people live better lives, and maximizing my own abilities to do the best I could in whatever I did.
Makes a lot of sense. With all that you're constantly doing, what I'm curious about, and you kind of gave an answer, but I'm sure the viewers are very interested in what you do, because it's very important to follow a successful role model. How do you have the time, or how do you keep your fitness at a maximal level?
Well, my days are, I set my days up so I make sure I do the things that I'm interested in doing and getting done. So I usually get up about 4:45 in the morning, and I start my work day usually about 8 or 8:15. So I have a few hours in the morning where I can train. So triathlons are my hobby. So I swim, bike, and run, do yoga, lift weights on a schedule. Like in 3 weeks, I'm racing. I'm going to Hawaii to race a half Ironman. So for the last 3 months or 4 months, I've been ramping up. So, Saturday morning, it's a 4-hour bike ride with a short run. Sunday morning, it's a 2-hour or 2.5-hour run. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I swim. I'm in a swim group, a master swim group. So I'll swim, 3 days a week, or, ride 2 more times during the week. So that early morning is that time to do that. I work all day. I'm seeing patients every day. We have a very large clinic. We have 78 employees in our clinic, and so we have a lot of people that come from everywhere. And I work a regular day from 8. I usually get home around 6 o'clock, 6:15. And then my evenings, I have my wife of 53 years, and we have an active life. We like movies. We like to play games. We like to read. And I have 9 grandchildren, and 4 of them live across the street. So they live at our house half the time. My wife's a really good cook. And so, the grandma's always good for goodies and food and all that stuff. During the pandemic, we had all our kids down here because our kids lived in New York and they were having a hard time up there. So they were all down here for a lot of it. So they have 5 kids. So it's a busy, fun life, and I really enjoy every part of what I'm doing. If I could have dreamed it this way, I would have dreamed it this way. There's nothing I would change.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's beautiful. And one day we'll have to have your wife on, because, I know how much support my wife gives me, and I'm sure she does the same for you. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. Very complete. So I think it's going to help a lot of people to really know what they would look at as an example. So let me ask you something, because you've done so many things, but some very interesting things you're doing or have done that are important nowadays. Tell us a little bit about what you did with the new medications and fighting viral disease, and the research you did against viruses, especially with COVID and everything, right? With this ribavirin.
Well, I did an infectious disease fellowship in the early 80s. And so I was in a program where you had to do research, and then you had to also spend time on the ward seeing people with infections. in the hospital, at the University Hospital in San Diego. And so during the fellowship, it was right at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. And it was a very confusing time. It was very much like what was going on in 2020 with this early COVID epidemic. Like, you had sick people who shouldn't be sick, who had serious, life-threatening illnesses, and the hospital was full of them. This was mostly young men. It wasn't understood. And so in my fellowship, we were seeing all these people and trying to make, heads or tails of what is going on. And we were doing research on this. So the new antiviral drugs were just coming out at that time, and they needed research to be done to see if they were safe and if they were effective. So as part of my fellowship, it's a drug that's still around today and it's still used, called ribavirin. And I did some of the initial research on it. We were actually looking at how the effectiveness against shingles. Like someone would get a chickenpox infection when they were 5, but then when they were 50, they would get this, rash across the side of their chest with blisters and severe pain. And so we were trying to see if that was effective, and that was part of the research project that I was involved in. So it was very, it was interesting. Every part of my medical career I have really enjoyed. And, the last 25 years I've been doing what we call integrative medicine, where, sometimes the current state of medicine produces good results in people, but for many people who go to doctors, the solutions aren't very good. I saw a patient today where, just astounding. He lives in New York City. He lives in Brooklyn Heights. And he's an architect, and he's a very successful guy. And he started getting numbness and tingling of his feet and burning of his feet starting 10 years ago, with progressive increase in symptoms. And he's 70 years old, very distressing for him. And he has seen 3 top neurologists. New York City is a mecca for medical treatment, medical places, Cornell and NYU. I mean, these are top tier hospitals and doctors. So he saw 2 neurologists, and they didn't really help him. And then he saw a third, and the person that he was referred to as the third one was told, this guy will turn over every stone to find out what's wrong with you. And they did the normal things. They did an MRI of his back and his neck, and, they nerve tested him. They did electromyograms on him. And the conclusion he came to was, we don't know what's wrong with you. There really isn't anything we can do, except we can give you medications, a drug called Lyrica, and another meloxicam, another drug, an anti-inflammatory. And pretty much this is how you're going to live, because he's on those drugs now, and he's still, at night his legs twitch and he has burning pain, and he's going to stop working. Because he wanted to search for some way that he could help his health. So I spent an hour and a half with them this morning. They flew down here. We're in Clearwater, Florida. Flew down here from New York. And I said, today you're going to get an exam that actually is something that you've never experienced before, because I know that what these guys know can be very valuable in certain circumstances. But if you have a chronic illness, they are not going to be able to help you. And he said, well, I've learned that. I've seen the 3 best guys that I could see. And so I did a very detailed examination looking at his nervous system. We looked at his blood on a microscope. We did a whole bunch of stuff. And at the end, I had a list of 4 or 5 things that I know are the reasons why his nervous system is degenerating and inflamed. And these are things that are reversible. Like, he wasn't born this way. At 60, he was fine. But at 70, he's not fine. And he's very young at heart guy. And he's got a beautiful wife. And he wants to live. But this takes all his attention away. So anyway, this is the sort of thing that, after doing this kind of medicine, like, what is the real problem with the patient? How can you help them to improve their life? And what we find is that it's a mixture of things that are in their body that aren't supposed to be there: toxins, infections, Because there's 300,000 different chemicals that weren't in our planet, 100 years ago, and we're all in it. The cosmetics and the hair products and the plastics and the chemicals and the pesticides and the food and artificial food. And then people have deficiencies. They're missing things. They're missing selenium or molybdenum or amino acids. And you got to put these things together because the body is malfunctioning because it can't do what it's programmed to do. And if you fix that, people get better. So we find about 85% of the people we see, and these people all have serious stuff. They're not, they're not coming with a sore shoulder. These people are, chronic fatigue and Lyme disease and autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis and ulcerative colitis. And these people are really sick, premature dementia. And in many cases, if the diagnostics are right, you can fix these people. Like you can get them to where they can return to a way better quality of life and length of life than they would if they hadn't seen us. So that's mostly what I'm interested in today. It's fascinating and it's exciting, and I'm probably studying as much now as I did, when I was in medical school, because the medical knowledge is doubling about every 6 months. There's 8,000 new medical papers published every day. And wow. So, and the technology, the new technologies, like we are doing things with light and magnets and, that nobody ever dreamed of before, but these things can be very effective used in the proper way to get the body.
I'm very curious because you mentioned light. What type of light, or is it different types of lights? What do you do with lights? Tell me.
Well, so the generation of the universe started with let there be light. And so we are light organisms. We are light beings. The communication system in our bodies is really, it's laser light. It's kind of interesting if you talk to a neurologist and you say, what's the speed of nerve conduction? Like if you touch the tip of your toe and you measured how long did that electronic frequency go up the nerve cell itself to the brain, it takes about a half a second. So nerves conduct electricity at about 11 feet per second. Now, if that were really true, and you were walking down, you were walking, and a stone got in your way, and you started to trip, if it took a half a second to reach from the edge of your shoe where you hit the stone to your brain, and then another half second back down, you'd be on your face every time because that's way too slow.
That's right.
A batter could never hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. A quarterback could never get a ball 80 yards down to the exact spot where the guy's going to be unless the perception was the speed of light perception. It's instantaneous. And not only is it instantaneous from the toe to the head back to the toe, but it's the toe to the head and then back to 100 trillion cells that are in the body, so everybody knows how to do the right thing. And you don't fall on your face, and you lean this way, and you lift your arm up, and you get your other foot there, all just automatic. And it's laser speed, it's speed of light. So then when you're trying to heal the body, if the body has a problem, you can use light, modalities of light, or even broader modalities of energy, so that you can get this body working better. And so we use various kinds of lasers, we use various kinds of magnetic fields, of teeny microcurrents that cause healing. They cause cells to get energized in a way where they can then regain their ability to do their job. And what we find in a lot of these people is that the toxin levels are so high in their cells that the cells become kind of frozen and they can't get rid of the bad stuff that's inside of them. And they become sort of non-flexible. And then if you look at intricate functions like memory or problem solving, and you have these neurons that are all sort of frozen or they're working on low energy, they can't do it. And by using lasers and light and microcurrents and pulse magnetic fields, you can re-energize them from the outside and then have energy which they can get rid of this bad stuff that's in the inside, and they can heal. And so healing really occurs on a cell level. And as more and more cells come back online and start working, then health improves and function improves, no matter what the organ.
Amazing. Well, that makes total sense in what you're saying with the instantaneousness, because otherwise, how could it function? How could you get done what you get done? I have a question for you, and I definitely would love to have you back because you have a wealth of knowledge, but there's something that's so prevalent now in the United States, probably worldwide, is sleep apnea, and it's causing a lot of different problems associated with the sleep apnea, and we're finding out more and more and more. What's your feeling about sleep apnea and how, obviously, as a surgeon, a dental surgeon, we approach it with appliances, with the positive oxygen, things like this. But what's your take or your view on sleep apnea?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's epidemic. It's absolutely epidemic. And I have a checklist that I go through on everybody because we see a lot of fatigue patients and a lot of brain fog patients. And half of them don't sleep, or they think they're sleeping, but they're waking up 30 times a minute or 40 times a minute, where they don't get deep sleep. They don't get brain recovery. And it's really a problem. Now, some of it is just plain 60% of the population is overweight in the United States. And when you gain weight, you gain girth in the abdomen, you make it heavier, you make it harder to breathe, you gain concentric layers of fat that obstruct the airway. You get people who are, say, borderline hypothyroid, and their tongues swell, and then they obstruct their breathing. And so this is it's a huge problem, and we see it, and I'm very alert to it. And there's guys doing Vivos, and there's guys doing more technical stuff to try to open up, widen the jaw. Sure. And we work on these people with programs too, so that they can lose weight and they can start to get fit and they can get lung health better. And these are very important, because if you're not breathing, especially at night, and you're not sleeping, you're going to get sick. So it's a really cooperative effort between physicians who work with patients like this and dentists who are aware of it. And we can do a good job if the diagnosis is made and really help these people out.
Very interesting. And I'm curious, because sometimes I see patients in my practice, and some, like you say, are just obviously overweight, but some actually are not. And I look at them and I go, interesting. Well, why are they? What's your feeling on those that are not overweight? What would be your hypothesis on why some of these that are not overweight, and not just out of shape, they're moderate in good condition? What would your feeling be on those? Why would they possibly be having this?
Well, some of it too could be toxicity in the brainstem, where the origin of breath takes place. The sensors that sense blood levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the brainstem, in the reticular activating system at the base of the brain. These patients can sometimes be, have toxins, heavy metals, bacterial toxins, fungal toxins. We've also found that a huge number of patients have a displacement of their upper two neck bones, C1, C2. So this is the top bone in the neck is called the atlas, and it allows us to, move our head this way. And the one below it's called the axis, and it allows our head to tip this way. Now, these bones, unlike any other bones in the spine, don't have a fixation point where they only have a little limited motion. Through trauma sometimes it isn't even very drastic trauma. These bones can be slightly out of place. And when they're out of place, the circulation of the fluid that bathes the brain, the cerebral spinal fluid, gets obstructed, and the brain then can't detoxify itself. And the vagus nerve is right behind C1, this top cervical vertebrae. And there's the best doctor in the world actually in this area. This is a subspecialty in chiropractic. It's called upper cervical. And these doctors, I refer a lot of people to her because when I do my physical exam, I can often tell if that's a problem. And then when she gets that bone back in place, they then improve their neurological function. Their brains start to detoxify. And sometimes their sleep apnea actually goes away because it's not an oral problem. It's a vagus problem. It's a nerve problem. And then, if you do the other things where they've got, a chronic infection of some kind or heavy metal toxicity, that you can get them back. And these people weren't born this way. This is an acquired condition.
Right. And very interesting. You know what? For those watching out there who may have this problem, what is this chiropractor's name? What is her name?
Her name is Julie Hunt, Hunt. And the outfit's called Mayer, Mayer Chiropractic. She runs the training program for chiropractors nationwide to learn how to do this. It's a 2-year program. It's a very technical thing.
And she's in Florida or?
She's in Clearwater, Florida. She's a mile from my office.
Okay. Unfortunately, I would love to have you for another few hours, but we've run out of time. But I wanted to ask you a question because I think our viewers would love this, and maybe I could arrange to be down in Clearwater area. You think it'd be possible on Monday night? Maybe we do a little tour of your office as a show. What do you think of that? Is that possible, or would you enjoy doing that?
Yeah, we could do it.
Yeah, good. So I think the viewers would be very interested, and we can arrange that, and we can make a little tour of the office and to benefit, and also the practitioners watching. I'm sure are very interested in what you have to share. Unfortunately, Dr. Minkoff, we've run out of time, but thank you for being on the show.
Okay, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
Oh, very informative, and I want to go back to school with you.
Okay.
All right, be well. And for those of you watching, if you want to reach Dr. Minkoff, the email is what, Dr. Minkoff?
So go to the website, LifeWorks, LifeWorks Wellness Center. It's all one word, LifeWorks Wellness Center.com. There's hundreds of videos on there, so there's a whole bunch of stuff you could learn. And if you're interested in contacting the office, if you have a medical problem, like I said, I saw somebody from New York City today. They flew down to see me. You can talk with a new patient coordinator and see if it's the right match between us and you.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show. For those of you watching, I hope this has helped you tremendously. I know it's been very enjoyable for me, and we'll see you on the next episode of A Time for Truth show. Have a good night.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet